Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of Council for September 1st, 2021, starting at 7:01 p.m. Just before we move into the agenda items that could be added, I just want to take a quick moment for the public at home to announce that Councillor Melanie Corbeil has resigned from Council effective immediately. I'd like to thank her on behalf of Council for her 4 years of service, and we all wish her very well in the we all wish her well in the future. And at this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Are there any emergent items? I have one here from Councillor Peterson, who would like to have a discussion in 13.1 under urgent business, a motion regarding Siksika Day, which would be here on September 22nd. Are there any other emergent items from councillors?
I have a statement, Your Worship.
You have a statement in the section, obviously, council statements?
Yes, please.
And I have one as well under 14.2. Any others? Administration? No. Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to have the agenda confirmed as amended. That's a good way to start the meeting, Mark. Deputy Mayor Cox has a motion for that. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. We have no in-camera items, no presentations or recognitions. We also have no delegations, and item 6, we have no consent agenda, so that brings us to 7.1, adoption of the July 21st, 2021 regular council meeting minutes. Councillor Peterson, I can't see you on here. You didn't Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And just as a question, when someone presses their microphone button, I should see them come up on my screen, but I'm not seeing that. I've got two button secret, and 3 button, none of which I understand. I'll try to keep looking. Normally I can see the name of the councillor when it comes on. No, that's okay. I'll just have to whip my head around a lot.
Through you,
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think someone has played with the system. We'll take a look at it tomorrow and get it corrected. My apologies. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you. That brings us to 7.2, adoption of the July 21st, 2021 public hearing minutes. Councillor Sobel? Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to adopt those minutes. All in favor?
Your Worship.
Aye.
Which minutes are those?
The July 21st, 2021 public hearing minutes.
Okay, and I move the adoption of the July 21st, 2021 public hearing minutes, Your Worship.
Thank you. Now we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
That moves us to 7.3, adoption of the August 18th, 2021 special council meeting minutes, page 18. Councillor Bauer makes that motion.
I move that Council adopt the August 18, 2021 special council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you for that. You've all heard the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. We have no tabled items under item 8. That brings us to 9 items, reports from administration. 9.1, the Vault Cultural Collective Memorandum of Agreement, page 21. And good evening, Mark, and welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I'm here to speak to provide an update to Council regarding the Vault Cultural Collective, i.e. the Standard Shoe Shop store. In March 2021, administration and the Vault Cultural Collective began discussions surrounding a lease agreement for the Standard Shoe Shop store. In July 2021, this memorandum of agreement was agreed upon by both parties. This report, my report here today, is just to provide an update to Council on our intention to sign this MOU or MOA for 1 year.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Councillor Bauer? Okay.
I just have a comment. Mark, I was really impressed with the memorandum of agreement. I also really like the fact that not only have you managed to get all of these different nonprofit groups together, but you've also included an information center for Strathmore in the works for us. And that, I think, is really exciting news for all of the people of Strathmore, that one day we're going to have a place for all of our economic development and our pamphlets and people to go for information on anything to do in and around our town. And so I really like that it's so close to the town hall. I like that it's in a downtown area where there's plenty of parking, and it allows people to see kind of a little bit about Kinsman Park and a little bit about what we're at. So thank you for all your hard work on this. I really appreciate it.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Bauer. Really, the Vault Cultural Collective is really the group that's really responsible for collecting and collaborating with all these different interest groups. We really do believe that there is a lot of value to this partnership. Obviously, Council is supportive of the community boards being placed out there, and so that really it's our hope that this will drive more traffic to the downtown core and also more traffic into that area. And yes, we believe there's a lot of value in that information or visitor information center in that building, especially the historical ramifications of it. So,
Thank you for that. Councillor Peterson.
through the chair, Councillor Peterson, my understanding is that the infrastructure department has figured out a desired location. I believe it's on the west side of the building on one of the green spaces, which is around the sidewalk and things like that. I don't know the status of that board and when the installation will be, but I can report back to Council after speaking with my colleagues on that.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions from councillors? Councillor Sobel.
Just with a motion, Your Worship, I'd move that Council accept the memorandum of agreement on the Vault Cultural Collective as presented.
Thank you for that motion. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. And that brings us to 9.2, Council Committee Appointments, Assessment Review Board, Public Members, page 27. Deborah, are you speaking to this?
Yes, I am.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Your Worship. Administration received an application for the Assessment Review Board, and we do have one opening available. It's been approved by a nomination committee, and we're just asking that Council approve that application tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for? Thank you, Councillor Peterson.
I would move that council accept the recommendation from the nomination committee and appoint Ms. Judy and just offer.
Thank you. Yes, that's a good point. We definitely appreciate the public being willing to come forward and volunteer to be on committees and boards. So I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. We move on to 9.3, the rescindment of policy number 1901, awards to bidders policy, page 47.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're just bringing this policy forward to have it rescinded as there was a new policy was approved by Council at the July 21st regular Council meeting.
Thank you very much. Are there questions? Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council rescind policy number 1901, awards to bidders policy.
Thank you. And just before I call the question, I just have one question for administration. Maybe Mr. Legore can answer this. I was reading through this, obviously, and on page 10, I looked at category E. It talks about disqualification of bids or tenders. And E states, any efforts or perceived on the part of the bidder to lobby, influence, or otherwise exert pressure on the competitive process. Now, I've been contacted a few times by a company when different bids have been accepted, and I'm wondering, do we often get a situation where a company is trying to lobby during the process?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we do not get a lot of that. And
Have we ever had to disqualify a potential bid?
not that I'm aware of, not in my tenure with the town.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. 9.4, Council Remuneration Review, page 63. And Deborah, you're up again.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration is bringing forward Council's remuneration policy. Due to the upcoming election, it is up to Council to approve this policy prior to that date. And we have not made, we've made some minor changes to it, just administrative changes. Administration is not recommending any changes, but it is Council's procedure, so they can certainly make any recommendations.
Thank you for that, Deborah. Any questions for administration? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Worship. While reviewing this enumeration review, I was just remembering that prior to, I believe it was our recession and even COVID, Council decided to take a little bit of a rollback in terms of our, what we perceived would be our opportunity to do conferences and other things. And I could not remember how much of a, I believe it was it 10%? A 10% cutback. Now, was that reinstated, or did administration take a look at that at all?
Thank you, Councillor Bauer, for the question. That was not, that was reinstated. The policy stayed the same. So that's been kept in there as a full amount from the actual approval that was done in November 2018.
Thank you, Ms. Hammerlich. Now, the other question I have is just in response to how things are going up in terms of conferences. And I hope, my hope is that we'll eventually get to in-person conferences again. So I'm just wondering, what was the amount for an individual delegate for gosh, I can't think of the name right now, for the annual Representatives ARA conference. And has that been factored in, like the increase in the amount for delegates?
So I think there's more, this budget is more than sufficient to cover AUMA and the costs. We haven't seen substantial increases, like based on what the numbers are at right now. We're definitely comfortable with where the budget's at.
Thank you so much for that answer. And I'm very comfortable with everything in here too. So I thank you for your hard work on all of this, Ms. Rusk.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Then we're looking, Deputy Mayor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that Council approve policy number 1806, Council remuneration and expense policy as presented, and that Council direct administration to rescind procedure 1806-01.
Thank you for that motion. Is there any further discussion now that we have a motion on the floor? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. This is just for clarification from administration. So if I understand this correctly, the only actual change is to clause 2.2, where you're just changing human resources and legislative services to strategic and administrative services. Is that correct? Like I understand, like I saw at the back, there's kind of some markup, but that looks identical to the previous version. So is there any changes besides 2.2?
Yes, Councillor Montgomery, there was another change to it. Basically, it was Appendix A. We changed it to Schedule A, and then there was an error made on the per diem rate on the copy that was uploaded, and it should be $4,000, not $3,000.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. I've just received a message from someone watching, and just a reminder to make sure you press your mics on when you talk or you won't be heard at home. So someone watching is saying that they can't hear certain people when they're speaking, so just a reminder. So I guess we have that discussion cleared up then, and there's no further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. That brings us to Proclamations 9.5, which is found on page 106.
Thank you, Your
Deborah,
Worship.
welcome back.
I know. So there's been a proclamation received from the Cerebral Palsy Association. Intermittently, administration receives these requests, and we currently don't have a policy in place for this. So we're just asking Council if they would like administration to bring forward a policy on proclamations so that they can be covered through this.
Thank you for that, Deborah. Any questions for Deborah or comments? Councillor Peterson. Thank you. And now that we have a motion on the floor, does anyone have anything they'd like to add or say? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. We move on now to 9.6, request for emergent AUMA resolution from the town of Oaktoks regarding ambulatory services.
So good afternoon, or good evening rather, Your Worship and members of Council. I'm before you this evening to recommend that Council endorse the Town of Oaktoks' request for an emergent resolution regarding the development of a plan to improve the delivery and performance of the ambulance system. As Council will recall, in July of this year, Council passed a resolution to endorse the City of Red Deer's request for an emergent resolution for an independent review of emergency medical services in the Calgary region and surrounding areas. The Town of Oaktoks' call to action for improvement in terms of the delivery and performance of the ambulance system aligns with this policy decision that was previously made by Council. While the Town of Oaktoks is asking for compensation and recognition of the role that municipalities play in the system, it should be noted that it is unlikely that the province would provide funding under the existing model. However, if the model was decentralized through an independent review, as Council has requested, this might be something more feasible. Regardless of the compensation piece, given the alignment with Council's previous policy decision, administration is recommending that Council endorse this emergent resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Kara. Any questions for Kara? Councillor Sobel?
I'm just ready with a motion before we go into discussion, if you would like, Your Worship.
Thank you. That'd be great.
I would move the council endorse the Town of Oaktoks' request for an emergency resolution regarding the development of a plan to improve the delivery and performance of the ambulance system, which recognizes and compensates the role that municipalities play in the provincial healthcare system, and that council direct administration to notify AUMA and Oaktoks of the Town of Strathmore's support for this emergent resolution.
Thank you for that. We have that motion on the floor. Is there any discussion or comments on the motion? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. That brings us to 10 committee reports. Are there any reports tonight? We're just going to have Councillor Peterson check this next microphone. Oh, it does work. So do you want to just sit there then?
Sure, I have a very brief report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Worship. The only thing I wanted to report was from the Wheatland Housing Management Body, and that is that Minister Pon, Minister of Seniors and Senior Services in Alberta, came to visit the Wheatland Lodge on the 20th of July, and she had a very, very good meeting with our lodge clients and the people who make their home there, and it was a very much appreciated by the community that her care and concern and considerable knowledge about the concerns that the Strathmore community had brought forward to the ministry. So I just wanted to mention that we were very grateful for that, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other committee reports? Then we'd be looking for a motion to accept the report as presented. Mark? Deputy Mayor Cox? Maybe, I guess.
Thank you, Worship. I move that we accept the committee reports as presented.
Thank you. And we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Number 11, items directly related to council. We have nothing on the agenda tonight, which brings us to 12 bylaws. 12.1, bylaw number 21-22, FOIP bylaw. Kara Rusk.
So good evening again, Your Worship and members of Council. Under the FOIP Act, Council must designate a person or group of persons as the head of the public body in regards to the administration of the legal responsibilities under the FOIP Act. The town does have an older bylaw that currently names the CAO as the head. However, this does not align with our existing internal practice. This function has been assigned to me in my job description, and therefore we are recommending the council adopt this bylaw. In the event that I am unable to act, the backup would be the CAO. In updating this bylaw, we've removed the fees and are recommending that they be updated in the fees bylaw. This will allow the fees to be reviewed on an annual basis against the FOIP regulation to ensure ongoing alignment. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Kara from council? Deputy Mayor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council give first reading to bylaw number 21-22, being the FOIP bylaw.
Thank you. We have a motion for first reading. All in favor? Councillor Montgomery? Aye. Okay, thank you. Next motion. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the council give second reading to bylaw number 21-22, being the FOIP bylaw.
Thank you. And now that we have a motion on the floor, is there any discussion on the FOIP bylaw 21-22? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Bauer?
I move that council give unanimous consent to proceed with third and final reading of bylaw number 21-22, being the FOIP bylaw.
That was a motion for unanimous consent, wasn't it?
She didn't say unanimous.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we have a motion for unanimous consent for third reading. All in favor? And motion is carried.
Your Worship, I would move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 21-22, being the FOIP bylaw.
Thank you for that motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. That brings us to 12.2, bylaw number 21-23, fees amendment bylaw, page 138. Kara?
So thank you again. So I'm before you this evening to recommend the adoption of the fees bylaw amendment. As mentioned in the previous presentation, the fees were removed from the FOIP bylaw to ensure that they were reviewed on an annual basis against the FOIP regulation. It is important to note that the fees that are currently in the fees bylaw do not align with the FOIP regulation, and therefore it is recommended that they are amended as they cannot exceed the amounts specified in the regulation. And the current bylaw, they do exceed these amounts. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Kara on this bylaw amendment? Councillor Sobel?
Just want to, thank you for that. I just want to clarify what you said. Did you say that the fees in here do comply with or do not comply?
The fees that we're recommending comply, but the fees that are currently in the fees bylaw are actually higher than what's legally allowed. So that's why we're bringing this forward. It's a cleanup item.
I'm ready with a motion, Your Worship.
Thank you. Oh, do you have a question,
Just a
Councillor?
question, yeah.
Question from Councillor Peterson first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Do we still have microfiche in our vault?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, we might just take it out then, if we don't have any.
So what I've been recommended by, I don't know if we have anything off-site. So there is the potential for that. We do have some off-site storage of some records as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things, like in terms of, I've been recommended by legal previously to just match it literally word for word what is in the act, and that way if you ever come across, like if we had to pull something back from archives and we magically found something, at least it's there.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Then Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. I would move that council give first reading to bylaw number 21-23, being the fees bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Peterson?
I would move that council give second reading to bylaw number 21-23, being the fees bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you for that motion. And now that we have a motion for second reading, is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? The motion is carried. Councillor Bauer?
I move that council give unanimous consent to proceed with the third and final reading of bylaw 21-23, being the fees bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? And that motion is carried.
I can do it, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 21-23, being the fees bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you for that. And I'll call the question again. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Council. That brings us to 13.1, urgent business, Siksika Day, September 22nd. This has come through me. It's kind of through Councillor Peterson as well. She's been in conversation with Siksika Nation Tribal Council and Councillor Ruben Breaker, and they've agreed that September 22nd would be the best day for a proclamation or naming a day that situation. I know there's a national one on September 30th, but I'm not sure if all the nations feel that that's the best date for something like this. So, Councillor Peterson, did you want to weigh in on that?
Through Mr. Mayor, you could actually pass this motion tonight if you would. Administration needs about 3 weeks, which is perfect timing for today to have everything ready. We do have some preliminary plans in place already, and we're ready to move forward as soon as council gives us direction.
If I could speak. It's that we know that there is a National Indigenous Day on June 21st and Orange Shirt Day on September the 30th. But what we, and then September 22nd is recognized as Treaty Day on Siksika. But Siksika has a long and difficult history with the treaty, as we all know. And there's been much difficulty and malfeasance around that. And it has been a terrible struggle. In my conversations, particularly with Councillor Breaker, that setting September 22nd as Siksika Day in Strathmore would really honor the resilience of the Siksika people and their partnership with us in this community. And it would act as an acknowledgement of our partnership and our collaboration as neighbors. And it would also lend itself to the acknowledgement of the fast and increasing population of Indigenous people in our community. It also acknowledges the issues that were outlined in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and how municipalities can come together. But most of all, Your Worship, it honors the Oaktoks partnership in the Siksika Strathmore anti-racism initiative that has been unique across our country. And I'm thinking that it would be a wonderful wrap-up for the end of the tenure of this current council and would carry us forward with a new resolve. Whoever is sitting on the next council would give them a new impetus and resolve to be able to continue this. So in that strain, Your Worship, I would move that we declare September 22nd as Siksika Day in our community.
Thank you for the motion. And now that we have that motion on the floor, and I have to keep turning my neck, obviously, is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. It's passed. Thank you very much, everyone. That brings us to 14 questions between councillors and council statements. 14.1, Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you very much. First of all, I just wanted to comment on what you had mentioned at the start of the meeting about Councillor Corbeil resigning. I just wanted to thank Councillor Corbeil and say what a pleasure it was to be on council with her. She was always, very level-headed and practical, and brought a lot of common sense ideas to the table. And I really appreciated working with her, and I wish her nothing but the best. And I have all the respect in the world for her. And so, yeah, thank you very much, Mel. It was great working with you. The other reason why I wanted to speak tonight was with regards to just council transparency, or just transparency in general with the public, and ensuring that we're meeting the standard that we set out for ourselves. And about a year and a half ago, maybe a bit longer actually, in the end of 2019, there was a report produced by the administration that detailed some interesting options or ideas that had to do with our wastewater plant. And I think that it's worthwhile for the public to know about this and to have some of the details that surrounded that idea. I think it's a great idea, and so I wanted to ask council to support the releasing that report. And with that, I'll make a motion that council release or publish the in-camera report on wastewater options for the Lakes and Muirfield development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So you have a motion on the floor. I guess my only question to the administration would be, do we have to be sensitive as far as FOIP? Are there things that have to be done regarding information? Was that report presented to us in camera, Councillor Montgomery? I think you said it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So would that have to be checked as far as FOIP?
So we would, I don't foresee anything. I guess what I haven't seen the report, so I'll have to review it and obviously assess it for that before we can release it. But it might be prudent for council to maybe give direction for us to review the report and in terms of whether it can be released, and if it can, then to go ahead and publish it or to redact the information that can't be, rather than to just simply say that we're going to release it, just in case there is something that needs to be withheld. Again, because I haven't seen the report, I can't speak to the details, so I just want to have that opportunity.
Councillor Montgomery, would you be comfortable giving administration a week to possibly go through the report and maybe have a FOIP search done to look at any kind of sensitive information that may not be available or should not possibly be made available? Since it was presented in camera originally?
Yeah, certainly. My understanding is it was just in camera at the time because it was kind of in the works, and so there was kind of information that was between a third party essentially in the town. I think that probably has resolved itself, but yeah, I'm more than happy to have administration take a look at it, and so I can either withdraw my motion or I can add on to my motion, I guess, for administration to review it for FOIP issues and then release it.
So do you prefer having a motion on the floor with that amendment as far as administration checking it for potential sensitive information and redacting? Or do you want to give them?
I'll withdraw my previous motion and I'll make a new motion that council direct administration to review the Muirfield wastewater report for FOIP issues, and then to release or present the report to council for approval to be released at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we have that motion on the floor. Is everyone comfortable understanding it? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. And that brings us to 14.2. 14.2 is something that I just wanted to mention, and that is it's actually keeping in line with Councillor Montgomery's discussion on transparency. Transparency was one of our main goals as a council, and we brought forward a lot of things that were different from past councils. What I'm wondering, and a question for Kara, is as you move to work with the orientation for a new council, I know we set the committee the whole day or committee the whole meetings in the morning, but I'm looking at some of the candidates, and I know there's a couple of teachers who are throwing their names in. So I'm wondering if in that orientation you can discuss while it's a savings to have those committee of the whole meetings in the morning, it does cut out some people who might want to run. And so if the orientation could possibly mention to them that they can set the meetings and they can indeed be in the evening, so that people who work are not impacted by that, because I know some of us were. And then there was a question to admin. I was looking through your remuneration, I can never say that word, remuneration bylaw, and I thought we had passed something that said you could claim per diems for committee of the whole meetings in the morning. I thought we had discussed that. It never actually ever became official. Okay, so that's the other option then, is if they decide they want to go to morning committee of the whole meetings to save staff costs in the night, then maybe there could be an option for those who have to work in the daytimes that they could claim a per diem for a committee of the whole meeting if it impacts their work. And I don't know if that's amenable to people or if that makes sense what I'm trying to say. Kara?
So thank you so much for that feedback and the question. What I can share with council is we have received some feedback already from a few candidates expressing that exact concern. So what we've actually said or relayed to those candidates is we're not even going to wait for orientation. When we go through the swearing-in ceremony and the actual organizational meeting, we will have the conversation with council at that time because that's when they're going to set the schedule and set the times of their meeting. And so we want to actually kind of start with that as kind of a first thing for council to really consider and explore and give us direction on where they'd like to go.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me. Unless there's any other comments or questions about that. Seeing none, we move on to 15.1, Administrative Inquiry Response. I think you've all seen it in our packages. Does anyone have any discussion on that or questions? Seeing none, I guess we can go on to 15. Oh, Councillor Bauer?
I have a question. The administrative inquiry is read that in the interest of transparency, could these be made available to the public? I have an issue with that, and I have a statement that I'd like to read in that regard. So would it be possible for administration to read the administrative inquiry, and then I will read my statement?
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. The administrative inquiry was received on August the 3rd from Mayor Fuel regarding attendance at council meetings. Can administration provide a summary of council attendance at council meetings since October of 2017? In the interest of transparency, could these be made available to the public?
So my question to the mayor is, for what reason would you like to make these available to the public?
Well, I guess it follows the same philosophy that we had brought. I didn't bring forward, actually, Councillor Bauer. You brought it forward as far as detailing all of our expenses and making them public for the public to see. So I think that started me on the path to think that, maybe the public should see everything that we go through. Basically, just to show how things are going. That's one of the reasons why I've talked about the next council coming in, whoever is on it, to either do away with the morning committee, the whole meetings, or to have per diems allowed so that people aren't put in a situation where they have to choose between their jobs. So I guess we've had a lot of council meetings where we haven't had a lot of bodies, and that can put us in a difficult situation. So I guess I just wanted to be transparent and show everything. I think the other thing that I might be requesting is our salaries too. I think people need to know how much the mayor makes. So I'm comfortable I was going to put in a next administrative inquiry to talk or to show a table. I believe it was in our financial report, what our salaries are, because I often hear that I get a lot of shots from people who say the mayors are getting huge amount of money. So I thought it'd be transparent. It'd be good to show attendance, our individual expenses that we've been tracking due to your motion that was carried by us, and then our salaries as well. And since it's the conclusion of our term, it felt like this was the natural time to put all that information out there. I was going to bring forward an administrative inquiry regarding having our salaries put on the town website as well. I know people can look for our salaries, but they have to dive pretty far into the financial report. And I think, as we conclude our term, people should see how much councillors are being paid, how much the mayor is being paid.
Thank you. So I just prepared a statement because I really don't think the numbers being put on a website really speak to the full picture of perhaps why some councillors may have been absent at some meetings. So I'd just like to say a few things about this attendance inquiry. I've heard from the people of Strathmore that they are frustrated and embarrassed about the bickering and infighting that they witnessed from this council. August was our time off to recharge our batteries, spend some time with loved ones, and to relax. The fact that the mayor would bring up on this very first meeting after our break this kind of pettiness shows the lack of leadership that our council in the town of Strathmore has had to endure for the past 4 years. Wasting town money to gather personal information and then telling administration to post this on the town website is just wrong in so many ways. First, attendance information does not take into account the reasons for the absenteeism. I, for one, have had serious knee reconstruction surgery where bones have been cut and then reattached with screws being drilled into my leg. My surgeon suggested a minimum of 8 weeks recovery before I could walk again, and I just hit that mark on Friday. So yes, I missed some meetings because of that, but I informed the mayor and council as soon as I knew that I'd miss a few weeks of meetings. Secondly, council moved the committee of the whole meetings from the evening to the daytime on the second Wednesday of each month. I'm a substitute teacher, so I work during the day. If I don't work, I don't get paid. I don't have the luxury of a government pension to sit on while collecting my mayor's pay. I need to work. So again, I missed some meetings, but I let the mayor know my reason. I am very disappointed that this information was gathered, this personal information was gathered about the absenteeism of my fellow councillors and myself without bothering to even pick up the phone and just ask them why they may have been absent. I don't believe that HR or any discussion was ever made or any attempt to contact me at any point. I'm not sure what you, Your Worship, were hoping to prove with this inquiry, but it worries me that your next ask will be about who has or hasn't been vaccinated. That's wrong too.
Well, I think you asked me why I put it on the website, and I explained, and you'd already had a prepared written statement that already showed what you thought about why I put it on. So you've already questioned my motives and came up with an assumption of why I put it on there, even when I answered your question. And if we want to talk about leadership, let's talk about code of conduct violations, because you're up around 8 since January of 2020, and I have them in my phone right now if you'd like me to read them out to the public.
And you've never once talked to me about any of them?
Oh yes, I have, in my office quite a few times. And there was one on a...
Your Worship, point of order.
Sure.
I just wondered about transparency, Your Worship, and I really disagree, and I'd like to make a motion that we not put this on the website. I think that without a proper I don't think that the numbers speak for themselves. I don't think that you can look at a councillor and say that the number of absentees that they have for 84 meetings speaks about how that councillor is in any way devoted to their job or prepared to work or any of the other things. I just think it's out there to put people out to dry, and I would not want those numbers to be used in a negative way.
So are you, Kara?
Sorry, I just wanted to make a comment, just so that we're clear, that the agenda is publicly posted, so these numbers are on the website. In terms of putting them anywhere else, that's up for council to decide, but the agenda is already public information.
Did you want to carry on?
Would it be possible to make a motion to redact the agenda item and then not post them on the website?
I imagine, has it been put on the website or is it just in their agenda?
Is it possible to redact it?
It would be possible to add comments, would it not? You could put riders in as far as things to consider when looking at the figures if it's considered to be problematic.
I guess what I wouldn't recommend adjusting the agenda. You guys have adopted the agenda as presented already in this meeting. I wouldn't recommend removing things. It's already out there. Like, the reality is, if somebody wanted to see this, they've already seen it. Truth be told, most people don't sift through agendas.
Mr.
Well,
Laborde?
maybe turn it over to
Kara,
Doug as well.
I thought you were done.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the information is always continually available on the website anyway. You just need to look at council minutes and you know who was there and who was not in attendance. So the information is already on the website. Thank you.
So I guess you could have, could you add something to the list of absences that two of the councillors do have other jobs, if that would help? Deputy Mayor Cox. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I'm the one that has the most absences. I'm also the only one on council that was diagnosed with cancer in 2019, had treatment, surgery, then had more treatment in 2020 and more surgery, and then treatment again earlier this year. And I've missed the most. And when you take the 140 meetings and me, myself, have only missed 24 meetings, that's 17% of the meetings that I've missed. If any of the public has a problem with that, I think there's no reason for the public to care whether I, the person that's missed the most meetings, missed 17%. No one is going to worry about it, Lorraine. So I think we've all talked already about the committee of the whole meetings being during the day. There's a couple of us that have jobs. This has caused some of that. I think everybody has heard that throughout this meeting that wanted to hear it. They can then go back and see it if they need to. I think it's very clear. I think everybody's made their point. I think it's time to move on.
The only thing I would add is what I said when I answered your question, Councillor Bauer, and that it's just one step of mine. The second one is to request that our salaries be made public too. So did we want to carry on with this more, or
I do,
Councillor
Your Worship.
Sobel? And it's Councillor Peterson and Councillor Sobel.
I just want to say, Your Worship, that I don't remember a time in the 5 times at least that my husband ran for council when remuneration and attendance, among other things, were always publicly posted in the newspaper before we had a public website. And so it's always been public. And the other thing I'd like to mention, in my time on council prior to this, this council's tenure, we've had people that have also had medical issues, and mayors, our previous mayors and yourself have always been open about the fact that we've had councillors that had medical doubt for reasons, and so people were aware of that. And so I think that that as Councillor Cox said, people truly understand that that is an issue, but very, very often it is a set of information that people use as I think, as Councillor Cox said, a very small part of their consideration in moving forward, but it's one that's often asked for. And so I think that the public that I speak to has been desirous of that for a long time. And I appreciate that that they are allowed to see that, as our CAO pointed out. Thank you.
Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. I'm just looking for some clarification from administration on the per diems. It's my recollection that many of the rules that we had in regards to per diems were lifted, and authority given to members of council to use their budget, which I believe was $4,000, as they deemed fit, including claiming committee of the whole meetings as per diems. I could be wrong on this, but I don't think I am.
That's
I don't
how
know
I
who can
remembered it.
clarify that.
I remembered there was money available that people
Yes.
could use to go to committee of the whole meetings, and if you didn't have to work, you didn't have to necessarily lose money. Mr. Legore?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll review the
Thank you.
past information.
Your Worship.
Councillor Montgomery?
Thanks. I have a question for administration about the attendance record. One about Councillor Cox. One of the ones that she's listed as missing was August 8th of 2021, but that's a Sunday. So I was just wondering, what? I don't recall a Sunday meeting. Was that an error?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that should be August 9th, and it was a CAO recruitment meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then we'll move on to 15.2, Administrative Inquiry Response. Kinsman Rock and Time Capsule, page 182.
Your worship.
Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank administration for working with the Kinsman or a representative from the Kinsman and putting the rock prominently near the amphitheater. It looks good. And so, yeah, I just wanted to thank you very much, administration, for working and taking care of that. Thank you.
Thank you. 15.3, Administrative Inquiry Response, Recreation User Groups Questionnaire. Any comments or questions on that? Councillor Court, okay, we have no comments or questions on that. Councillor Peterson has a quick thank you.
Your worship, last night, the Strathmore Family and Community Support Services, a local community member, Trevor Wheel, and several community members met with the mayor and a few councillors to acknowledge International Overdose Awareness Day. I want to thank them for their work and for coming out after hours and for acknowledging this and for the work that they're doing in community to continue to address this lately. And I'm very much appreciative, especially of our staff that came out. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So all we need now is a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Cox has a motion to adjourn.